happy day, my Vibers. Today is such a great day because today I'm going to bring you something that I'm really excited about. Someone we found at the beginning of the year and that I wanted to share with you. Our guest today is Guillermo Leal. Guillermo is the owner of CycleBar West U, our favorite ride. Right, Rusk?
Absolutely.
And workout for he and I. We just love going there. Guillermo is also one of our sponsors, so I'd love to get you all to know him and also to get excited for what he's bringing to the table. And we're excited to have you, Guillermo. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Alicia and Rusk. Super excited to be here. And looking forward to sharing with you guys my experience. And so happy that you guys love the studio.
We do.
We love the studio.
We do. You know what? At the end of last year, and I think this is a topic that I've brought up on the podcast, is that I was going through like a wellness journey, so I was going through like a lot of changes. I was looking for cardio. My doctor was like, find cardio that you really like. The other cardio I was doing was really hurting my knees. So I needed to do something that was fun, that was exciting, music. And your workout was like so perfect because I remember thinking to Rusk, like, these people are like coming on Southwest Freeway. This is before you even opened. This was maybe 6 months before. Yep. And we saw something on Instagram that popped up and said something like, coming to you, West U, Southwest Freeway. We're like, oh, that's not too far from us. Yes. It's actually right off of West Park. Yep. We live on West Park in Derry Ashford. So it's like a straight shot, Guillermo. So for me, it was like a way for me to also get a good workout and like also work on my wellness journey because I've started that wellness journey probably January 1st, I think.
No, we started January 28th, the end of January.
Yeah, for me, my wellness journey though.
Oh,
it was
the wellness journey, right.
Yeah.
But you also had issues with your knees, so you found this.
I did. I had issues with my knees. Right. I couldn't work out, usual, sprinting and running and that kind of thing. It was too hard for me.
So why CycleBar?
So I started actually 2 ventures. So one of them was on my own, still lifting off the ground, which is developing technologies and helping technical people connect with investors and develop patents. So I've been working that with my dad, who's also an engineer, retired. I've been working that, but I also wanted a model, franchise that I said, okay, how do I go in a separate, something that is not related to energy?
Yes. Well, something fun.
Right.
A different kind of energy.
Yes.
Exactly.
Something positive. And it's also, we've been there, like Alicia mentioned, it's sexy.
Yeah, it is. And I thought it was a way to also help the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I found on it was when I was working on oil and gas, indoor cycling and cycling has been a refuge for me, not only to help me stay in shape and feel strong, but also a disconnect from all the nonsense and all the noise that we surround ourselves. You come out of there and you'll see most people will be like dying, but they're happy. They're glowing.
It's a happy joy.
Right?
Yes.
And I wanted to provide that.
Right, yeah.
And I also felt that there's many things that happen for me to get into cycling. One of them is I always connected cycling with happiness. So I said, I want to be able to provide this. And also I always feel that customer service is horrible. It's just in a general basis. It's horrible. People, you go get I'm a big coffee drinker. And you go to a coffee place and I'll ask you, how many times do people even acknowledge when you come into a coffee place?
Right.
They don't even care.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's not that you're, I don't expect that much attention, but I do want to be acknowledged in this transaction.
No, and I think any customer, I think that's the definite key word is acknowledged and be recognized for being there and grateful for being there.
Because you don't exist without them. That's something I think people forget. It's like your customer is everything. Yes. So how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them happy? How do you want them to come back? Well, then you just reflect on yourself. And that's what I've been doing, right? I've been trying really hard and enforcing that. I want to, very simple, right? Like, what is that saying? Treat everybody like you want to be treated. And that's true.
Yeah, right? The golden rule.
Right?
The golden rule.
One, and don't be a salesman, right? And I'll say that, tongue in cheek, right?
Yes.
But what I mean is people don't want to feel like a dollar bill either. Right. So I want to sell.
You don't want to feel like you're being sold to all the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
People like
That's
the product.
So true.
The sales will come on their own.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you don't really have to try very hard if the product and the service is there.
And honestly, the personal relationship with someone creates that sense of like, oh, I like them. You know what? Let me recommend them to somebody else. So it sort of becomes like leads, create
Right.
more leads
Right.
Yes.
based on the feeling and the welcoming, the
Right.
nature,
Yes.
the environment, the climate
All of
Yes.
it.
inside of the whole thing. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and so for you, can you tell me a little bit? I know Rusk and I have talked about doing like a franchise. We've
Okay.
been thinking about it. We have businesses and multiple things. We've thought about maybe franchising in a particular field. But tell me a little bit about that franchise process and a little bit of like the build out and like what did you learn
The
throughout the
trials and
process?
tribulations.
Yeah.
Right.
What
all
did
of
you
it.
learn?
What did I learn? I learned that is the best analogy I have is it's a marriage. It's a marriage relationship. There's things that they are going to do that you don't like, that you don't agree with, and there's things that you're going to do and they're not going to
They're
like.
not gonna
Give us
like-
some
yeah.
details. What are the
For
things?
example.
Right.
So for instance, with my particular franchise, I don't have anything that I don't particularly like that I can't think. I'm sure there are, but let me walk that process,
Right.
that thought process as I go. So
Maybe at the beginning,
yeah, so at the beginning
things
it
may
was
smooth it out as time
it's just
went
kind of
on.
like dating, right? Because what happens is they're picking you as well. Because taking all the emotional and excitement away, right? It's a business partnership.
Right.
This guy gonna get into enough debt and be able to pay. Is he
Right.
Is he responsible? What is his track record? And that's really what they're looking at.
It's like an in-depth credit history.
Yeah. So they're checking your
Financials and all.
financials and everything. And they're also checking you as a person because they're going to deal with you every day. So can I deal with this guy every day? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And then you coming
Uh-huh.
from the, different type of world, for my case, specifically from an employment. So I almost saw it like, okay, well, I also need to impress them, right? So they can pick me in and we have the same profile.
Right.
So
For sure.
So what happens then once if successful, then you also realize I studied their team a lot, and I love still to today. I love their team, and I love their team because they felt very genuine, right? And I already had tried their product, so I liked their product already. So I know that the experience they were providing and had the guidance of the business I already liked. So I was sold on that before I even went. So my research there was more about people. So who is the president of this franchise, right? Who's the team actually hands-on? Because you can have the leader who's the head and
Right. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
sometimes those positions are very decorative.
So is CycleBar in Houston? Where are they headquartered? Where are they based?
They're in California,
So they're
Orange County.
So they're nationwide.
Yes.
How many locations do they have?
They're about 300 and something. I can't
And
remember. the
how many
number.
are about in Houston?
So within the loop, I guess, there's 3. Houston Heights,
Right.
Sawyer Heights, and West U.
Which one are you?
And Katie, right?
West U. Yeah.
West
And then
U.
there's
Yeah.
Katie.
It's coming up.
Pearland.
I
There's
saw
one in
that,
Katy,
yeah.
Pearland. We're great friends with the studio in Pearland.
Yeah. You said you're good friends with the one.
Yeah, with the owner. Yeah, because
Okay.
they're franchised, but they're all privately owned. So there's one in Sugarland as well. But yeah, they continue to grow. It's a successful brand. And that's another thing I liked about it is inclusivity. And it sounds, when you hear it, it sounds a little bit cliche, right? It's like,
It
they're
sounds like that.
inclusive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then if you look, once you start, because there's another transformation of part of the whole process is, one thing is to be a writer. Another one is to now get into this world of fitness, right?
It's a whole other ballgame.
And
Yeah,
it's
it's
aggressive.
different.
And I
Yeah,
come
it
from
is
an
very
oil and gas
aggressive.
world that is aggressive. And you get into it and you're like, oh, wow, And
Yeah.
so you start learning. Then all of a sudden, the world inclusive, it's not that cliche anymore. Because when
No,
you start
for
seeing
sure.
different studios in their motor, their strategy is completely different, right? So you'll see studios that are like, well, we
Right.
just look good, and the sell is if you come here, you're just gonna look good.
You're gonna look like
Right.
us, perfect people.
Exactly.
So
No,
I like,
but I agree with the inclusivity component
Right.
because that's one thing that I really, really enjoy about CycleBar West U. It's the women that attend, the men that attend. It's all walks of life. They don't all look like the
Right.
perfect
Yes.
5'5",
Right.
120-pound girl. It is like all of us that are like in different stages of our lives. There's some that are moms. I can tell there's some grandmas.
Right.
There's some young Gen Zers, some millennials. You can tell there's that you really, for you, particularly in West U, you really live by that.
Yes.
For sure.
Thank you so much. It's very flattering because
And
that's
that's something that
I
we
strive for.
really love to see and something that
Yeah,
we
we
do
do
together.
because it's a lot of these workout studios are intimidating. You look at them on the social media, you see people spinning on the bike really fast, a lot of music. Oh, I can't handle that. I can't do that because I get in a bike in the neighborhood. I'm going at my own pace. But there are people in there that just go at their own pace.
Yes.
They're like me. They kind of sit in the back of or on the side. And there's something for everybody. You're not being isolated. You're not being picked out. You're not being called upon to do better. Your money, it's your experience. Make the most out of it. And I think that's the best concept because a lot of folks, they think this is only for professional athletes,
Correct.
Division I athletes, and it's not like this.
And
The
it's
complete opposite.
Give us one piece of advice before we go. One piece of advice for those entrepreneurs that are they're ready to just free themselves from the 9 to 5, or maybe they're not ready to free themselves, but they're ready to jump into something like you. Maybe a franchise, maybe like a small business. What is that one piece of advice that you want to give them?
What did it take for you to cross the Rubicon?
For me, I feel like I cheated because I feel like I was thrown, like I promised myself and then I had to hold myself accountable to it. So I had to do it because I was.
Everybody gets there differently.
But I think if I was something that has helped me and continues to help me is in 2020, I also, I don't know how much time I have, but I'll tell you this story. So I used to work for BP. And in 2020, I had a lot of my savings in BP stocks. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember, oil crashed to negative numbers.
Yes, right.
So a lot of my stocks and my savings were in oil and gas.
Yeah.
So I've been reading about Elon Musk, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, man, so I took an aggressive move. I took all my shares, all of them, and I put them on Tesla. Mm-hmm. And within 5 days, they announced a split. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
So it jumped from 5 to 1. So I wasn't.
Diluted.
So I recovered because I had lost over 60% of my money. Mm-hmm. So I recovered. So I'm telling you this story because then I started getting into the stock market, and I started. Okay, there's a future here. There's something interesting. So I started reading and reading. I got certified in some of the principles, and I'm still working on that, by the way, taking courses. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, and I was telling another friend of mine we were doing it, and I was talking to him. I said, "It's all about training the stomach. You have to train your stomach and embrace that fear, because then you'll buy something and it drops. But then, what are you buying, right? So my advice is, for example, I would buy a company that I believe in. So I think, the future is going to be entailed of AI, telecommunications, space. They're all related. Electrical cars are coming. They're here.
Yes.
They're going to be cheaper. They're going to take over.
Drive 2 of them.
So this is, to me, I may not win in the short term.
Yeah, but you're going to win the long term.
Right. And
but everyone investing that knows it's always about the long term.
Correct.
Right.
And that's so if you can train yourself in the short term,
Train your stomach.
And embrace the fear.
Those fears.
Yes.
And to embrace them.
Yes.
And see it as a long-term
Yes. And I think
strategy.
that transition for me into the entrepreneurship, because which actually my advice is, it's okay. And here's the other thing. It's okay to be afraid. Tell yourself it's okay.
And do it anyway.
Yeah. It's 2 signs. If you're afraid, you're leaving. You're doing something out of your comfort zone.
Right.
If you're not afraid, you're almost dead because you're in remote control. Right. You can do that job in your sleep. That's the worst place to be.
Guillermo, it's been a beautiful, wonderful conversation with you. I feel like we could go on for hours. You have so much to share with us, and I'm really grateful for your time today. And I want to just encourage all of my listeners to go check out CycleBar West U. They're one of our sponsors. Did you want to maybe give them like a promo, something that you want to promote?
Well, if you just come over and check us out.
So what's your social media?
CycleBar West U.
Okay. Yes. CycleBar
At
West U.
CycleBar
That's it.
West
We're there.
U.
And what is your address?
3233 Southwest Freeway, Texas 77027.
Is there a suite number or
No, just
no
32.
suite, right?
Yeah.
You can see the sign once you pull into the parking lot.
For
Very obvious,
sure.
right? It's right next to Jimmy John's. So
Yeah, that's right.
You can go work out and go have a sandwich.
Absolutely.
And then go work out some more after having.
Every year for the last 7 years, I do like a Father's Day celebration. Sometimes I do an event, right? We've done an event at your shop. We do a book affair. Sometimes I record a podcast. And this year, I definitely am recording a podcast with two fathers. Then I'm invited today. I'm super excited about this because I have two young dads. So I don't have some old farts in here today. And I'm really excited to share with you all two dads that are very intentional about inspiring other dads and also very instructive in the way that they are raising their two daughters. So for me, it is a pleasure to present to you all and welcome my brother, Jose Pep Araujo. He's my brother. He's my youngest brother. He is 8 years younger than I am. Can you believe that? I know I don't look that old.
No.
And so he's a dad to a 19-year-old girl, Jade Isabella, which we love, and a 12-year-old boy, Gavin Santos. And I also have my friend, my trainer friend, Matt Mitchell, and he is the father to a young lady of 8 years old, but she's almost 9. She's going to be 9 this month, and she's McKinley.
Yep, my baby.
Yeah, so welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being on the podcast. I'm really excited about this.
Same here.
And my husband, Rusk, is here, too, because, you know, we do love to have Rusk around.
Thank you. It's always got a lot of things to say.
Yeah, way too many things to say sometimes. You know what, though? But, you know, this episode is really important for me because for the last 7 years since I published my book, I always have an event. I do something. It's either a book fair, but a few years when Rusk had his auto repair shop, we had an event where we would bring dads and daughters to teach their girls how to change oil, how to rotate tires. Like, we had a few things happen at the store, right, at the shop.
Yeah, you had a couple of Father's Day events there.
Yeah.
So fathers and daughters can bond and also get to learn about that, you know, working on vehicles isn't just a boy thing or a man thing. It's actually a girl thing.
And girls can learn how
drive
to do
cars,
it.
and they're going to break down from time to time. They got to know how to get themselves out of a jam.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, for me, this is a really, really important time of the year. Because not only because it's Father's Day, but I think my dad, and Pep, my brother, will say this, he was very instrumental in our raising. He was very instrumental in my life as a young girl and someone that was very ambitious and very driven and came from a very low socioeconomic background, that came from a place where you don't know how big to dream because you don't know if your dreams are going to ever achieve that. And my daddy always said, dream big, 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 big. Never go low, never go small, always go big, always achieve.
That's how she found me.
You know what? My dad will say that.
And that's
too.
what my dad wanted to shut it down, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? I think that's why I think dads are so important, because if it wasn't for him, I would have not had that opportunity to think big and grow big and like really achieve the things that I wanted to achieve, because he really did become an instrumental part in that. But let's start with you guys. Let's start a little bit with you both. You are both young fathers. So tell me a little bit about being a young dad. So I'll start with you, Pep, and tell me, you were 19 when you had your baby girl, Jade.
I was 20. I had just turned 20 when she was born.
You had just turned 20.
Wow.
Yeah. So right out of high school, well, a couple years in college, and then she came about. Yeah.
Was it scary?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, you have no idea what to expect. I mean, I was a kid still, and I was going to be raising a kid. So that absolutely was scary in itself. Yeah.
And then she's such a beautiful young lady now.
Yeah, she came out really well. Yeah. Yeah, she came out really well. So she's very smart, very.
She's 19 now.
She's 19 now.
She's
yeah.
19 now.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing trajectory for you both. Matt, how old were you when you had your daughter?
So this year I'm turning 31. My daughter is turning 9. So
About 23.
I was roughly 22, turning 23. Yeah. So I mean, roughly around the same age. Even between 20 and 21, 22, 23, your mindset is still the exact same. You know, like it's still, you know, you super young. You don't really know what you're getting yourself into, and
Was it scary?
It was really scary. I think it was that feeling of unknown, right? Like I didn't know what it meant to be a father, but then also scary as in like this is a new venture, and I knew it was going to be something that was going to make me stronger. and then also it was going to bring joy to my life. So just scary in so many different ways.
Right. So when you became fathers, what was the first thing that came to your mind in terms of like, how am I going to raise this little girl? Did you feel like you were confident in that, or did you feel comfortable with that, or?
I felt extremely confident. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, you know, we grew up with my dad being around us every day of our
Right.
lives, so I kind of had a background, you know, from him, you know, being around us, and I kind of knew that if I just followed his steps, I think I was going to do okay.
Yeah, a good example.
I don't know if I feel confident because, I don't know. It's just, I think confidence would have been hard to. That's not the feeling that I had. More so, my feeling more so was me knowing that I was going to do my best, no matter what. I wasn't going to give up on my daughter on anything in life, and knowing that me doing my best would be something that she would appreciate, you know, in life, and it would help her. So
Right. Was there a fear that you wouldn't know what to do with a girl because you were so accustomed to being a boy and like knowing what to do for boys and not knowing what to do for girls?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I still have those fears.
She
Yeah.
still hasn't.
Yeah.
She still hasn't gone through the teenage years yet.
Yeah,
and I think that's the biggest dichotomy for a father and a daughter. And I think Jose can attest
Absolutely.
to that because your daughter's now 20, right?
She's 20.
Well,
Well,
she's
19.
approaching. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
right. She's approaching 20. So it's a whole different. It's a different thing. It's a different dynamic between boys and sons and daughters, which I don't have experience with, but I think you
Right,
can
right.
attest to that.
Oh yeah, and I mean, my son's completely different from the way, you know, we raised our daughter, straight up. I mean, you know, but Jade was extremely smart, extremely outgoing, and never had any problems with her. So it's always been really easy with her. It's just, we've never had a hard time with her, really. Yeah, it's been pretty easy.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about you know, raising girls. It's like really understanding where your girl's coming from and understanding her viewpoint, right? So if she's already a smart girl, she's already kind of established herself her independence.
Right.
I think the role of a father is just to kind of nurture that girl that's already developing, right, Matt? What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So, I think that kids, like us as parents, like we have the tendency to like want to steer our kid in the right direction,
Yes,
right?
right.
But there has to be a line to where we get to where we're like, okay, we're gonna let them make this decision. I'm gonna let them, you know, make this decision on their own or whatever it is, right? But also at the same time, I'm gonna tell them whether they follow their face or they're successful at it. I'm gonna help them get through that. And I think that the nurturing part, like the the nurturing part, as far as, you know, wanting to do everything for your child is the hard part, because you have to eventually separate. Yeah. Thank you for getting that. I was like,
Oh my goodness, that damn fly.
it was like it's just a fly. Just
Oh,
flipping
there's
around.
another one in here. I gotta get it.
But yeah, just to go back, I mean, that's just one thing that you have to. I got a taste of that over the weekend with my
You
daughter.
did? Okay, what happened?
I was going to ask you that. You have a recent experience of
Yeah.
that disconnect there.
So-
that kind of like, wow, I didn't see this coming, or
Right.
something similar to that.
I've never really. So my daughter this weekend, for the first time, I let her get away with not doing what I wanted. I'm gonna put it like that.
Okay.
So my daughter's been running track, right? She's
Yes, yes, I
been
saw
doing
that.
phenomenal. Like
Yes.
her first year in track, and I mean,
That's your daughter on your Instagram post running on the tracks.
Right.
That's her.
Yes.
Right?
yeah. So, and I mean, like, phenomenal was in like her first year. She's a natural. Like, she's came in first in a lot of different heats, and whether or not she was first or last, and she just gave it all. You know, like, I would be proud regardless.
Effort.
But like, I mean, like, I'm like, girl, this is to the point where,
Yes.
like, if we keep working at this, you will be really good. But I digress. She had a track meet, and I think I just put a little bit too much on her plate. And so in track, you have certain things that you can sign up for, right? Certain events. And I signed her up for the first half of the season, we signed her up for about 2 events. Well, this track meet, I signed her up for 3. I signed her up for a relay. She's like, Dad, I don't know. I don't want to do a relay. I don't know how to do it.
What were the other 2 events besides the relay?
The 100 meter right? It's just an individual. You just
Right.
run straight 100
Right.
meters, and the 400, right? Which
Yeah.
you run 400. You just run a lap.
And
right?
she's 8, almost 9.
Right.
8, almost 9. All the
Yeah.
girls she's running with are like
Okay.
9 and 10.
Mhm.
Right? So she's already kind of like, Dad, I don't know. Like, these
Yeah.
girls are bigger,
They're older. Mhm.
Right. And she's thinking, like, these girls are faster. I'm like, girl, you were there. If anything, you've beaten a lot of these older girls. But anyways.
So just not to digress a little bit, but the relay, it was a 4x100?
Right.
Which is
no,
just
it was the 4x4.
400, okay, I see. And so that's a very different training than training for the 400.
It is. The 4x400, you have to run a lap and then hand it off
Right.
to the person who's
Okay.
next, right? And they just do this over and over 4 times. She did this last week. She did phenomenal. But the reason why I got her to do it last week is because I kind of enticed her to do it. I gave her an incentive. I said, if
Okay.
you do it, I'll take you to the store
Right,
and
right.
you can
get some ice cream.
Yeah, well, I gave her a toy.
Yeah, there you go, right. Ice cream always works for my boys, but yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny too
Yeah.
because after I took her to the store afterwards, and it reminded me that my daughter was only 8, right? Because she goes and gets a big doll, and I'm thinking that she's gonna go get like a gift card or like do something else.
No,
No.
she's 8. Yeah,
She
yeah,
gets
yeah.
this
yeah,
big
yeah,
doll.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
she's 8.
What kind of doll was it?
I went to Target and got like some type of whatever.
Cabbage Patch Kid. They still
One
have
of those.
Right.
I don't know if it's cabbage, but it was
Yeah.
like one
The
of those.
21st century version of that.
Exactly.
Right.
So, anyways, this week comes up. I'm like, I'm gonna put you for the same events. She's like, 6 o'clock in the morning, starts whining and crying and going back and forth with me. And I eventually got to the point where I was like, you know what? If you don't want to do it, I'm not gonna be the person to make you do it. You know.
Okay.
Right.
And I had to have a talk with her, her track coach, and one of the things that really resonated with me is when I asked him, I said, look, have you had like whenever, because his daughter runs track too, but she's older, and he had a lot of success with her. I'm gonna put it like this: she's pretty good, and he's like involved, right? So I'm asking him like, hey, did you have problems when it came to getting your daughter to actually like track? I feel like my daughter every week tells me she hates it, and and as part of me is as a parent, like, okay, she only hates it. It's her first year. I want her to get a taste of it. She needs to make friends, etc. So I asked him. He was like, "No, man, my daughter, she just took right to it." And it was like it was something that she really wanted to do. So, and then me fighting my inner struggles, right? Like I want her to do it, but I want her to do it because I loved it, and I want her to love it the way I loved it, right?
Right.
So anyways, to get to the end of the story, right? With the 4x4, I took her out. I told the coach, and I was like, "Look, she just don't want to do it, and we're gonna see if maybe I can talk her into doing it before the end of it. But I'm not gonna bribe her.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that,
Right.
and I'm gonna let it be her decision." And she chose to walk away and be done with not doing that.
Uh-huh.
So, anyways, I had that happened over the weekend, and I kind of learned like I can't force my daughter to do certain stuff. I'm used to it. Wash the dishes, take out the trash, that type of stuff. Like I'm not that aggressive.
Did
That's
you
really
get to
not
the
me.
bottom of why she didn't want to do it though?
Yes. So
You
I
did,
asked
okay.
her to.
Yeah,
So
you asked her.
I talked to her, and the coach talked to her too as well. And part of it is her. One of the reasons why I put her in track and field is because to build her confidence. She's not 100% confident, even though she's good. She's not confident.
Right.
And then also she has a little bit of social anxiety. So
Okay.
she'll like go in a setting. I remember dropping her off with like these 20 girls that she's been running track with all season
And she
long.
knows them pretty well.
She knows them, but she won't say hey to anybody. And I've told her, like, when you walk around people, you say, hey, if you don't know somebody's name, hey, my name is McKinley. Or you just talk to them. Just be social. And she didn't talk for like 5 minutes as I saw her. So I was like, that's part of the reason why I wanted to get her in there. So when I talked to her, she was just more so like, I'm scared. I'm afraid that I think I'm going to mess up. And I'm like, and it's so long. And I'm like, you run the same event. But, this part of this is trying to reason
it's
with
kind
an
of like
8-year-old.
backing up a little bit and not forcing somebody to do something they don't want to do.
And that's what I had to get down to.
Do you feel like maybe it's just a little time for her just to get
To
to
mature?
that point? Yeah, because she
Absolutely.
is 8 years old, and I
Right.
think that we do assume because she has a lot of talent
Right.
that we need to push her to that level already.
Yep.
And her brain isn't ready for her body.
Right.
Her
Right.
body and her strength and her physicality is there, right? And you see it. As a dad, you're like, oh my God, I see it. But her mind hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Right.
And I think that's the hardest thing, I think, as parents, is to kind of like look at our kids and see, we see this potential, we see this growth, we see this amazing thing coming, and like burgeoning out like a
Right.
flower, just flowering, but then it's still not ready to flower yet.
Yep.
You have to give it that time, right? And I think that's the hardest part. As I think as parents,
Yeah.
fathers to any kids, boys or girls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the most
Right?
challenging thing is balance between trying to push your kids but not pushing them past that point of no return where they don't want to do it anymore.
And where they hate it.
Right, where they
Right.
hate it,
And then
right.
they're resentful
Right.
for you because
Yeah.
you pushed
Right.
them to that point.
So many of our son's friends have parents that put them in 5 different athletic programs,
Yeah.
basketball, football, and they're just they're tortured, they're traumatized,
Right.
they're just mad at everything, and they're not excelling at anything.
They're not
And
excelling
I
at
think
anything.
just before we get to you, Jose, I think the 4x400 is a team sport, and
Right.
the 400 and the 100 are individual. And I think it's the pressure of trying to of not being the the slowest leg on the race.
To let down her team,
Let
basically.
down her
I think
team.
that's what she's afraid of.
Exactly right,
And you both hit it
right.
on the head, right?
Because if you fail on your own, you feel on your own, but then it's the
Right.
pressure of feeling for your team.
She
right?
doesn't want to be the one to drop the baton, to
Right.
mess the handoff
Right.
off, or to say
Right.
they're ahead to get laps.
Yeah.
Or what. I get it, and
Yeah.
I ran track,
Yeah.
Right.
in high school, and then even in the beginning of college, I started doing track, and then
Did
kinda
you do
gave
track
up
when
on
you
it.
were 8?
No.
Yeah,
So
that's-
that's
right.
that's a big difference.
Big difference,
So
yeah.
that's
a
half of
big
the
one.
battle right there.
That's
the
a big
battle.
one.
And that's what I was
Trying
gonna
to
ask.
figure
Like,
it out.
how early do kids usually start running in track?
Man, there's kids out there young, right? Like I'm 6 and 7 years
Okay.
old. But it just depends. I realized too, this is not something that I've always had around my daughter. So had I really stuck with track and kept it
Yeah.
a thing, she would have seen that as
Mm-hmm.
as she got older. But and even with like watching TV or introducing to YouTube, right? Haven't really pushed that on her, and then I throw her in track and I'm like, oh, she's good. All right, let's do it, and
Yeah.
she's not
Yeah.
ready,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. No, and I think it's just that acknowledgement, but it's a really good point of view for fathers in a sense to kind of have that self-awareness, right? That their girl, you see it and you see the big picture. They don't see it yet for themselves. Like that's a thing that Rusk and I always have a conversation about our kid because we're like, well, I'm giving my kid this, I'm giving my kid that, but he won't do it for me because they still don't see how important it is to give and take, like the two-way street, right?
Right.
It's for them at this point, especially for a 19-year-old, it's a one-way street for him all the time. What are you doing for me? Why aren't you doing this for me? But it's hard for us because we're like, yeah, but we're giving you a lot. We're giving and giving and giving and giving.
Right.
It's okay for you to be there for mom and do something for me too, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's the hard part. And I think it's just a maturity level
Yep.
and getting to that point in their life, in their age gap or whatever, age they're in, like reaching that point.
So
So, going back to that, do you ever find yourself like giving her some incentives, giving Jade some incentives so that she can do what you say? I'm calling them incentives or tokens.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
but
I mean, she's
they're
19,
really like
she works,
bribes,
right?
they're
So-
really like bribes.
But I mean, we're kind of in the same situation. I mean, Jade is not in athletics right now. It's more academic, right? So whenever she joined college, she mentioned she wanted to do nursing, which is great. We need nurses, absolutely.
Of course, yeah.
But what I told her, I said, I know your potential. I know how smart you are. I said, why don't you try, pre-med, maybe, go for the doctor kind of route,
Yes, of
Try to be the
course.
best you can at the medicine part. And she wants to try it. But, as she's going through school now, some of the classes that she take for pre-med are, really hard. And she's like, I can't do it, this and that. And I'm not incentivizing her.
Yeah,
I'm just asking her to try it out.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen, I told her then it doesn't happen, and go back to your normal route that you were going to take anyways and go to nursing. There's no problem with nursing,
But she
I would
did
like
it,
to try the
right?
fact.
But she did this first year. She
did the first year.
She accomplished pre-cal,
She
right?
did, yeah, she passed it.
She
yeah.
passed it,
And
which
not a lot
is
of
a
kids pass
very
it.
hard class,
Absolutely,
by
yeah.
the way. And
So I know
what
she
an
can do
amazing-
it.
Yeah,
I know she can do it.
She
I
can
know
do it.
I know she can get to that
Yeah.
level
Yeah.
that a doctor gets to.
She
right?
has that in her. She just has to believe that she can
Right.
get to that level.
Yeah.
I am so grateful, you guys. Before we go, I want you all to tell me a little bit about what you do
Right.
and your business. We really want my audience to reach out to you guys my brother Pep is one of our sponsors, and so I definitely want you to talk a little bit about what you do, because we've shared it a little bit on the podcast, we've shared it on Instagram, we shared it on social, but you know what? We have the most amazing outdoor experience because we have a surround sound.
Right.
Oh, Russ goes out there when there's baseball, basketball,
Football.
football.
We have some wine, some alcohol.
Oh my
we have a
God.
hard time making it back inside
We
the house.
love our
even though it's back
outdoor
there.
experience,
But
and
that-
that's because
right.
my brother set it all up for us. So tell us a little bit, Pep, about what you do.
Yeah, so we're AVS Concepts. We've been in business since 2014. Family-owned business. We do anything from home security systems, security cameras, home theaters, outdoor living areas, TVs, you name it, anything low voltage, we take care of. We do new construction, post-construction,
Wiring,
wiring.
wireless, home automation.
Home automation. We have, we're very similar on, to like the bigger companies on security side. We do a lot of security monitoring, but the benefit with us is we don't hold you to the big long-term contracts like the big companies do. So, people move, people, downsize or change homes.
Right.
And, the bigger companies will lock you into that rate. We do a little different. We understand everybody, has a different circumstance. If you need to move, okay, cancel your contract, it's just fine.
I love that. I love that because that's customized to the
Right.
client.
And that's what we do is everything
Love
is
that.
customized. We don't sell, we don't have any packages. We don't do anything like that. Everything is custom tailored to the customer.
Well,
Beautiful.
talk about the latest technology. What's like you had told me the other day about the new HDMI cables, and what's the latest equipment?
Yeah.
that should go
So,
out there?
with everything, technology changes every couple months, right? 3 months, 6 months. There's something new coming out. So, with the latest stuff that we have now is voice control. I was talking to, Alex earlier. The new stuff that we have, I kind of compare it to like the Jarvis from Iron Man, where you can just speak to it. It's kind of a Alexa, but Alexa on steroids.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah,
All right.
so
Okay.
it's
I
very
think I want that
free
already.
speaking. Yeah, it's very free speaking. Just tell it.
You got too much to go on. You got too much wine
Yeah.
going on. You
Just tell
can't
it what
even
to
type
do.
anymore. You can't look
he
at
needs
it.
that.
You just
Yeah.
got to
He
speak.
does.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the new technology we have now is voice control. Everything else kind of stays the same. Our speakers. We have our line of speakers that get better and better. With time. TV installations. Something as simple as that. We can take care of.
Any challenges in terms of the shortages of supply chains?
Absolutely. So again, everything has the same chipset as vehicles.
Right.
So we have a hard time with our material. So what I do is because everything's custom tailored to the customer, I put in the equipment that I know is available at the moment.
Okay.
But you have advantages over some of the bigger companies because don't they have to order in bulk?
They do.
And so if they're not going to order 20 TVs, they're not ordering one TV. You can just
Right.
order one TV and get it just as fast or even faster than some of the bigger
Absolutely,
companies.
yeah.
Good
So
point.
anytime we need something right away, we reach out to our distribution or our
Right.
direct dealership that we have, and it comes to us right away. And they're happy to help the smaller companies like ourselves. And again, what we differ from the larger company is my customers. I mean, you guys are my customers, but all my customers have my cell phone, and they can reach me at any time of
Right.
day. 7 days a week.
Yeah.
They text me and they'll say, I'm having a hard time,
Gotcha.
with my sound system, my patio. I'm having a party this weekend. Can you fix it? Luckily, I can log in remotely from my house.
That's great.
And fix it for them.
Right.
Yeah, and they all have my cell phone, so you don't get that with a bigger company. You just
No.
don't.
I love that. ABS
Fantastic.
Concepts, you guys. If you are looking
Yes.
to have the luxe experience, outdoor experience, inner experience, the surround sound, all of it.
What's their Instagram?
It's your Instagram.
It's at Concepts AVS.
Right.
At ABS
No,
Concepts.
At Concepts AVS.
ABS. Okay.
I had to change it up.
Concepts.
Well, we're not the
ABS.
only AVS Concepts. There's actually a couple in Tennessee.
Oh.
So do not go and compare us to their
And
reviews
AVS
because their reviews are no good.
ABS is audio, video,
Security.
security.
Concepts,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Beautiful.
Fantastic.
I love it. Love it. Check them out.
Matt, what about you? Tell us about you just opened a gym recently.
I did.
Yes. So tell us where it is.
I'm an official gym owner. It's in the Bel Air Gallery area. It's called 4C Fitness. 4C stands for Four Corner, and Four Corners Fitness basically breaks down to four corners of the four aspects of how we like to train, right, or how we like to run boot camps, how we like do our personal training, and those 4 aspects come down to endurance, power, strength, and core.
Okay.
And that's just kind of how we do our training, and we give people like, look, this is how our method is. But as far as our facility, we just opened it up about three months ago. It's been a good 3 months. We've been each month adding more and more to the gym, and it's a great gym.
Awesome.
If like for people who, first of all, may need like some type of more specialized training rather than like larger groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
More specialized training where you actually have certain specific goals that you need somebody to actually pay attention to. But then also, even if you go from there, and then you may want to join like a boot camp
I
or
love
like
that.
a larger group class.
I love that.
We have
You do the boot camps inside the gym?
right. So we have boot camps. The plan is to have those out maybe the beginning of next month.
Sure.
But then even then also as well, we work with we know a lot of people in the city. It's crazy. Me and the guy who we my co-partner, right?
Right.
We know a lot of people within the city, and our goal is to just bring in like-minded people, like bring in people on our team who will be able to, I guess, relay the message and be able to like.
What's the address?
Our address is 5240 Elm Street.
5240 Elm Street.
We are really interested in educating you all and giving you all some information that you can take home and really apply it in your home. So for us, we are super, super excited to welcome Humberto Garcia. Welcome, Humberto.
Thank you for having me.
And Humberto's with Vanguard Agency, the Vanguard Agency. He's one of our sponsors. So if you haven't noticed yet, you will notice that on everything on our social media, everything on our descriptions for our podcast, you will see all of his contact information, and you will definitely know how to reach him. So let's start and let's get excited. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We're so excited to have you. So, Russ, mention a little bit of how you met Humberto.
So Humberto and I met at a workout studio in Houston, in the Heights. It's called Sweat. Back then it was called Sweat 1000, but they've rebranded themselves to Sweat 1K. And so we were taking the same studios, and we had a commonality. We were both business owners, and conversation started with that way. And Humberto has been in the insurance business for how many years now?
Since 2004, so 18
2004,
years.
right?
Wow.
So we thought it could be a great idea for Humberto to
Yes.
come on here
Right.
to talk about some tips about insurance, about what to do in certain situations.
Yeah.
And maybe, get some knowledge out of it. I think a lot of the times I used to be in the body shop and
Yeah.
auto repair business, and I used to get clients
I remember
call
that.
me all the time. Rusk, I got in an accident. My husband's out of town. What do I do? Should I wait for a police report? And I think Humberto's going to enlighten us on what to do. Also, we live in Houston.
Yeah.
Houston floods, as we've all know. What do? Do we get flood insurance? Do we not get flood insurance? What's the best policies for homeowners? What's the best policies for cars? What's the market trends for the insurance business? And why go into somebody like Humberto, who is a broker, not necessarily working for a major insurance underwriter like a State Farm or an Allstate? Why go to him? What's the advantages of going to him?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's something that affects our lives all the time. It's something that at some point you're going to get a claim. You're going to get an accident. Your fault, not your fault. You're going to get a homeowner's claim. Your roof leaks one day. You may flood. You may have theft.
Right.
And what to do? Because we all have the perception, looking from the outside in, that insurance is always kind of screwing you. And I personally don't think that's always the case. I think in my experiences of 20 years in the auto repair business, they always tend to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But every now and then, you get something that hits the papers. You get something that hits media, and the entire industry's painted with that same brush. And so I think having an agent on, like Humberto,
that.
and having a broker that not only is specific to a major carrier, where you can get diversified quotes from the best quote. He's going to look for the quotes for you. And I think that's a great ad, because this is something that makes a decision. If you get a house, you get an apartment, do you get $1,000 deductible or $500 deductible? Do you get a full coverage policy?
Right, yeah.
So what to do when you have a claim on a residential property? So just to break it down in a few sections, you have hail or wind damage on a roof, or and then you have flood damage, or you have theft, and then kind of tie that in a little bit to the replacement and cash value. I know it's a little bit, it's kind of a little bit of a complicated question, but you get roof damage, and you get these roof guys. They call you all the time, and the roof guys say, "I can fix your roof. Call your insurance and stuff like that." And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. But then you have a roof leak, and then you call. Give people the process. Give our listeners the process of what they should do from A to Z to make sure that they're getting the best kind of advice in terms of a claim. Because a lot of people make a mistake. Like, for example, I've always had an inspector there for all the properties that we've done. And then one property, I said, I'm just going to roll the die. I'm going to call him out there, file a claim. And the inspector wasn't there. And my claim was denied. He found a few shingles for $300. My deductible was obviously greater than $300. That's never happened before. So I think if the inspector was there, and I had this conversation outside of this, always have the inspector there.
You always want to call your contractors, call at least 3 contractors, get 3 different quotes.
I'm sorry, not the inspector, the contractor.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, get 3 contractors to look at your roof, look at the damage, and pick one that you feel comfortable with, you have a good price, and that has experience talking to insurance companies. And then whenever the adjuster for the insurance company comes to see the house, make sure the adjuster is there at the same time. I mean, the contractor's there at the same time, because they're going to point out other damages that the insurance adjuster may not see.
Oh, okay.
And that's how you always want to make sure you have them at the same time.
Okay.
Don't do it where they're separately, just at the same time. That's always works out to be the best for
So you don't necessarily have to have a contractor there, but you should probably have some quotes there.
You have some quotes there, but I will still advise.
Because you can't have 3 contractors that are obviously at the same time.
Right.
You should at least have one contractor and maybe
contractor.
3 estimates. So one contractor, multiple estimates, have the contractor there at the time of the inspection.
Yes.
Reach out to the contractor, and then make sure that they coordinate with the field inspector, right?
Correct.
Right.
So always have a contractor with you whenever the field inspector comes.
So what happens if you don't have flood insurance in Houston and your house floods?
In Houston, there's no such thing as no flood zone anymore. In Houston, it's either going to be a low risk or high risk.
Okay.
Oh, so everything is flooded. It can be flooded.
Anything can be flooded.
So is this new? Or is
this
post?
We're getting more and more. We're getting more
post-Ike?
and more floods.
Okay.
Is it
more.
post Harvey? No.
I'm sorry, post Harvey.
There's several reasons. Yeah, one of them.
Too many in Houston. It all becomes a blur, right? Post Harvey.
We're growing. Houston's growing a lot,
right?
And there's a lot of new houses. All the new houses are elevated,
right?
So the elevations are changing. Places that didn't flood before now do flood. There's so many places that flood that didn't flood before.
So it's just based on high risk, low risk.
Okay.
But as a homeowner, what should I do? Should I still get flood insurance?
Yes, I think everybody should get flood insurance.
No matter where you are, low risk.
Low risk, get it insurance. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you don't have flood insurance and your house floods, you're screwed.
You're screwed on zero coverage.
No coverage.
And even low risk is going to cost you like $600 a year. It's not like very expensive.
That was going to be my next question. What percentage of a premium typically is flood insurance, percentage-wise?
Very
less than 10?
Yeah, less than 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the damages could be $30,000, $40,000, right? So they'll cover if your house came with carpet, but you decided to upgrade it to tile, or you put some fancy tile like we did, like porcelain tiles, like $12 a foot, ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
And will the insurance cover $12 a square foot tile?
Yeah, they're going to replace whatever.
They're going to replace whatever it is.
As long as you have the replacement cost for flood, also it applies to flood as well.
So you have to have replacement cost and a flood insurance, and they will replace not what your property came with, but what you currently have.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So in houses that are worth like over, $300,000, $400,000 grand, you can get a policy for flood, $250,000 for dwelling, $100,000 for the contents. That will make it replacement cost. Those are the highest limits for the preferred rate.
So replacement cost is 100% minus your deductible.
Correct.
And replacement cost is determined by the going rate of particular like cabinets, the tile, the sheetrock, the paint, or do you have to provide receipts for all that?
No, let's say you buy a TV that's worth $1,000 and it's 3 years old. So they're going to give you, that TV is probably no longer, selling anymore. So they're going to give you the next, the closest thing to that TV, current market.
Right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's good to know.
flood insurance, minimal cost, definitely worth it. You said that if there's no longer any defined flood zones of what's a flood zone and not a flood zone.
It's either low risk.
High risk rows.
Yeah.
All developers are now going forward in the city of Houston or in the Harris County in general.
All of Houston, everything's getting
Outside
elevated.
of Houston too?
Everything's getting elevated. Yeah.
So everything's getting elevated. They're now forcing developers to bump up your house an extra 2 feet or 3 feet, right?
There's a lot of areas that couldn't build, but
Right.
now they bypass that by just raising
Building
higher.
Building higher.
And
So homeowners are absorbing the cost of going a little bit higher, but the flip side of that is that you
Yeah.
probably have a less risk of flooding.
right.
And just because you didn't flood in 1 year doesn't mean you're not going to flood in the next year.
Right.
We didn't flood in Harvey, but we only got 36 inches of rain, but some areas got 50 plus
Of
inches of rain.
course. If-
Right.
If we got 50 plus
Yeah.
inches, we could have definitely
We could have
flooded,
definitely
If we
flooded.
have like a Hurricane 5 and it hits on the right spot in Houston, many houses are going to be flooded.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Well, that's really good to know because I
Yeah.
think a lot of listeners don't understand that everything is flood prone. Everything.
Everything's flood prone.
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
Well, we live on a
We
swamp.
don't have any. Yeah, we do. We
Man,
definitely
this
do
this
live
used
in
to be a swamp
Yeah.
300 years ago.
yeah.
So the water
I
has
know, so-
has really
so
nowhere to go.
people
Right.
learned how to
And
do
every
that.
house would
So-
probably have a claim. Like if we get a Cat 5.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Cat 5.
Yeah. Every house is going to have some kind of damage.
And
some
you
kind
know,
of
with
wind
climate
damage.
change and all of that, I think it's just so much more likely that
Right.
it's going to happen, and it's going to be something that's a clear possibility
Right.
for so many homeowners in the city.
So when you have basic homeowners insurance, no personal articles endorsement, no flood insurance, but you get a hurricane and it damages your property, that's covered.
Correct.
That's
That's covering the coverage A.
So
Go
when you file, most of the time hurricanes are wind, right? It's not really the rain. They don't really bring a lot of rain. I know Harvey brought a lot of rain, but that's kind of exception to the rule.
Right.
It's mostly wind. So wind does a lot of damage, typically to windows and to your roof.
Right.
And so when you file a claim, they always ask you, is it wind or hail damage? I always think that's a trick question in a big storm because I don't really know if there was a lot of wind. I don't know really if there was a lot of hail. I think I saw hail. I think I saw a lot of wind. What do you say? Both?
Storm damage.
Storm damage.
Storm damage, yeah.
That's the key word,
Right.
storm damage.
Yeah, just storm damage.
Wow.
Just say it was storm damage.
Storm damage.
But so if I say wind and they say, well, you didn't have wind, you had hail damage, can they deny the claim?
No.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no,
So why are they asking that question?
just to get details to fill out the form, but it's
so
not.
they're not categorizing. Well, you said it was wind, but we found hail damage
No.
and not wind damage. So therefore, we're denying your claim. It's like, well, do I just refile the claim as hail
Because
damage?
what homeowner really knows?
Right, exactly.
What
That's
it
my
exactly
point.
is,
Right.
unless you're a
Right.
meteorologist.
Right, meteorologist, or you're not even expert. If you look
An
at the
expert in
tiles,
that,
you look at
yeah,
the shingles,
yeah.
and you realize, is
You're
that
like,
wind or
is it
hail?
wind or
It looked like
hail?
hail ripped
Yeah.
it off. I mean, hail punctured it.
Yeah,
but
that's putting the homeowner in a predicament that
Right.
they don't understand what
Right.
affected their
like
house.
you have an HOA policy. Some of the what's not covered in HOA
Right.
policy is wind-driven rain.
right.
And if there's a hurricane here, you are going to have
Wind-driven.
rain damage.
Wind-driven grain.
Rain.
Wind-driven rain.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Wind-driven rain,
Yes.
right.
So
Okay, that's
that's when
interesting.
you can get water damage inside your house. So that's why you always, recommend the HO3 and
So next time you have a policy, next time you have a claim and you have a situation with your home and it's leaking, just say storm damage, sorry.
storm damage. Yeah, that's fine.
Storm damage, right. Wow, that's
Wow,
interesting.
like I learned a lot.
Yes, this is amazing.
This is like really good because
Get a police report,
I had no
get a
idea.
personal articles endorsement, right? Also,
Bring
get
your
flood
contractor
insurance.
So the
Same.
biggest,
Yeah.
the personal articles endorsement is wedding rings. So
Wedding rings.
Yeah, so that's like the
Okay.
main thing
Right.
we insure wedding rings.
Right.
Those wedding rings can be 5, 10, 20 grand, depending.
Well-
Depends how sexy the wife is.
Well, let's talk about that real quick.
Let's go back 20
Mr.
years.
Elatassi, you got off very easy.
Smart guy.
You need to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He's smart.
yeah. So we have have a personal articles policy because it kind of covers theft, but it doesn't really cover theft if you want something specific covered, right?
Right.
What you're alluding to is you cover theft by damage to the door, damage to the windows,
Right.
maybe some damage to the walls, if the guy decides to throw shit around,
Right.
damage to your couches. But if you're saying something, hey, he stole my engagement ring of $20,000, or I'm paying $100,000,
Right.
got to have a separate policy
Right.
for that.
Right.
Flood insurance. Humberto says flood insurance is inexpensive.
Very
It's
inexpensive.
worth it. You never know when the next Harvey's coming. Just because you didn't get hit doesn't mean you're not
Usually,
going to
It's
get
not
the
gonna
second
happen.
time, right?
The flood rates are changing a lot recently.
Humberto, if we want to find where you're coming from, where they can find you, where can my listeners find where you are?
They can go to my website, vanguardagencyllc.com. Call my office, 281-453-8770.
Say it one more time.
281-453-8770.
Yeah,
And how many agents do you have working with you?
We have 11 agents.
11
amazing.
agents.
So
Wow.
that's,
Agents.
that's
And
amazing.
we've been around for 4.5 years. So we
So if they
opened.
can't find one person, they'll find another person.
They'll find another
There's
person.
no way they cannot
Right.
Yeah.
find Humberto Garcia or somebody at Vanguard.
And you have
Agency.
agents that specialize in homes, in homeowners insurance, right?
Yeah, our agents are all trained to educate you first. It's like the first
Perfect.
thing. So we don't
Beautiful.
sell. We educate you. We let you decide
Right.
what options you are comfortable with.
Yes.
Maybe having you're okay taking a risk, not insuring your wedding ring. It's okay,
Right.
But at least now you know it's not covered
Right.
versus not knowing at all or
No.
during the
I love
impression that
that
it's
because
covered.
Right.
a lot of listeners don't know that those things are covered, what's
Right.
covered, what's not covered, and I think that the fact that you say we can educate you on what it is that we're doing before we sell any policy to you, I think that's important. I think that's a big difference.
I think it's huge because it's
Huge,
right.
yeah.
I think people take it for granted until
Yes.
something happens one day,
And then they don't realize.
and they don't realize it. It's
Yeah.
like, man, I wish you would have done things different. I think what Humberto
Exactly.
explained is what I want to reemphasize one more time: is you get a flood insurance policy, not expensive. Get a personal articles policy. Always wait for a police report. Right? There's no really difference between a hail and wind damage. It's just really a storm damage, right?
And have the contractors there.
Have the
They said
contractors
at least
there.
Have
Yes.
three or just
Three
one.
quotes.
Have 2 or 3 estimates.
Estimates
Save
and
your
have
receipts.
them, yeah.
Common sense stuff.
Yeah.
Put them away in a safe box. Put them away in a security box at the bank because you never know. I said we always think that it's not going to happen to us until it happens to
You
us.
know
Yeah,
what?
no.
That is so true. But let me just go through one more thing because
Right.
this is the thing that always gets me. We have kids that are teenagers, and should teenagers have insurance? Because we have a teenager, he's 19, and we were like, oh, I don't know, like he's expensive. It's a teenager boy.
Right.
What do you recommend in terms of that? Because it's been like a point of
Right.
contention for,
Right.
for Rusk and myself.
So when you have a teenager driver, I highly recommend to have insurance and you up your liability limits because any person the age of 16 to 25, they're a really high risk of being in car wrecks.
Right.
And the more assets you have, let's say he's at fault, the more assets that you'll have,
Right.
then the more likely they want there could be a lawsuit
Pursue those.
to go after those assets.
Right. And so what happens if how does the insurance discover, for example, if you have a $300,000 cap on your policy and then insurance somehow, not the insurance, the claimant is that, am I saying that
Right.
right? The claimant policy is real, somehow they figure out you're probably worth more than 300,000.
They hire an attorney and they do a discovery
discover.
and if they find out you have any kind of assets, they're gonna. I
come
mean,
after it.
I've seen it many times.
Okay, so does the insurance go? So I go to you, and you find me an insurance carrier. An insurance carrier stops at 300,000. What does your insurance carrier do to make sure it stops at 300 and doesn't go after more?
So the insurance carrier is gonna review the claim, and depending on how big the claim is or how bad damage is, let's say it's a minor thing,
Right.
they do a lawsuit. It's all negotiation between the lawyer and the insurance carrier, but the lawyer may say, "Give me $100,000," and they'll settle 20 grand.
Right.
But something major, like a debt or something,
Right, debt.
then you're talking millions at that point.
Right.
And if you're
Talking millions at that point?
you're talking millions at that point.
But millions has to just the claimant has to justify that they're worth millions.
Correct.
Because they have to say, hey, I was making 9 figures before,
Right.
you killed me. you know, if you're making $40,000 a year, you're not entitled to 20 million, right? So you got to say, so what's the formula? Because I think a lot of people looking from the outside in, should I get 300,000? Should I get 500,000, 700,000? And then realize that, but you know, somebody hits me and they're making $60,000, you're not entitled to $500,000 or whatever.
So what I recommend is that, you know, the more you have, the more you can lose, right? So you have some rental homes and you have some assets that you want to protect them.
Yes.
So you want to have the higher limits just in case that happens. It's not that much money extra per month, maybe like $20 a month.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. But I will also add an umbrella to it.
Umbrella policy.
Yeah,
That was
umbrella
going to be my
policy.
next question.
And I will have like an extra additional $1 million
Right.
of liability protection in case of losses. You're really protecting
Everything.
people from
Just
taking your
From
stuff.
coming after you,
Yes.
right?
Because that's the umbrella. That's the metaphorical. It's like an umbrella. It
Yes.
protects absolutely
Yeah,
everything
for
in your
sure.
assets, right? So what does an umbrella policy cost for $1 million?
$300 a year,
$300 a year.
$400 a year, maybe
For $1 million.
$1 million.
So $200, $2,600,000 a year,
Right.
something like that,
Right.
give or take.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very, very
That-
inexpensive.
But
Right.
you know what? That makes sense that he's saying this to us
Right.
because there's a lot of families and there's a lot of women in this listener audience that are moms to teenagers, and we always worry our kids are driving out there. A lot of them are texting. They're with their buddies. They're with their friends.
Right. They're adolescents.
They're adolescents.
They're impulsive.
They're going fast. I mean, as much as you try to give your kids like
Nice.
no, like a life. Yeah,
Right.
a life, a liberty, freedom. There's still a lot of liability that's going
Right.
on, especially when they're out with their buddies or out with their friends. And literally yesterday, I was watching the news when I was in my mom's hospital. The kids, there were 3 teenagers that went through an embarkment and they fell into like a river.
right.
And they were 16, 17, 18,
Yeah.
19 permits. They had driver's permits. And that's just in my head as a mom of a teenager. She's
Absolutely.
19 and soon to have a 15-year-old who's going to be driving too. It really gives me a lot of like, okay, what am I going to do to protect my kids
Right.
and protect who we are as a family?
It's tough out there, and that's, I think, what...
And I'm glad you mentioned that because
Yeah.
I think it's an important part to
Right.
mention for a lot of these, you know, these families and moms like myself.
I'll give you a scenario that happened to an agent, a friend of
Uh-huh.
mine.
Okay.
He had a doctor, had a lot of properties. He had a son that was like 22 years old. The son just graduated college. And he was partying the night before. And he wasn't into drugs or drinking, but that day he did have smoke, right? Just celebrating with the friends.
Well, but not smoking a cigarette. He was smoking something...
Weed.
Okay.
He's
yeah,
smoking
because
weed.
Smoking weed's not...
Yeah.
Smoking cigarettes not
Yeah.
illegal, right?
Correct. He was smoking weed, and the next day he was driving downtown Houston, and a homeless person just ran into him, and the person died, but it wasn't his fault. So there was a cop behind him.
So a homeless person in a vehicle... Right?
No, he was walking.
Oh, he ran over the homeless
Yeah,
person.
he ran over the homeless, but it was a homeless person's fault in this case. Cop was behind, saw the whole thing, and said, "Don't worry about it. I saw it.
I saw it, yeah.
I know it wasn't your fault, but because there was a debt involved, they had
Yeah.
to do a drug test on him, and he failed. And now it becomes a different type of lawsuit.
Right.
They didn't have an umbrella policy, so it ended up costing the lawyer a lot of money to settle the lawsuit.
So it cost their lawyer a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right.
The insurance company,
To defend the kid.
the insurance
yeah.
company is going to pay the limit of the policy. $100,000. That's it. They're going to pay $100,000. After that, then the insurance companies they're done
Who's
their job.
pursuing that lawsuit, though? If the homeless person isn't
Yeah, that's,
pursuing
I
it,
wanted to
Yeah.
ask that question.
who's
Yeah, he had-
pursuing
he
it?
had a-
Is it the
Who's
city
defending
of
the
Houston?
homeless?
He had a family. The person had a family.
Family.
Okay, see, that's
Right.
another
Yeah.
situation, of course.
Right.
So, stuff like that could happen, and you don't know. To me, having an umbrella policy for $300, $400 a year,
Yes.
just peace of
Makes
mind,
sense, of course.
Right.
and just sleep better.
You sleep
Of
better.
course,
I
yeah.
think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
I like
I think
it
that's
too.
great advice because if you're a high net worth individual, I think it's definitely worth it.
It makes sense, absolutely. Umberto, thank you so much for all your
No,
tips.
thank you.
Thank you for being here today and sharing all of these amazing. You know what? I think we learned a lot today.
I learned. I like the policy. I like the part
And-
about the umbrella policy. That
I
was
do
fantastic,
too.
Right.
And in a quick recap, I
Right.
feel like we got some really good details
Yep.
and tips on how we can pursue insurance and not be afraid of it, but really use it as a way to protect ourselves.
Right.
Right? I think a lot of people have a sense of like, oh, insurance, oh, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have it. But honestly, I think where you're coming from is like protect yourself. It's good to be on the proactive side, basic, right? I love that. I think that's important.
It's fantastic because
you
never know when you're going to need it. You go 10 years without having a claim. But that just really quick, I just want to ask one more question. Why is insurance always going up and it never goes down?
Right.
Because you don't have a claim for 10 years, not a homeowner's claim, not a car insurance claim, and all of a sudden it goes up. I know inflation, I know cost of standards, but it always upsets me. You have one claim after 10 years, and then your premium went for $100 a month to $124. And you look back and you do the math and you call the insurance carrier and say, listen, you've collected $20,000 from me over 10 years, and you've spent $4,000 on me on my last accident. I said, you got to really increase I'm obviously a low risk individual. Is it based on the carrier, or is that kind of industry wide risk analysis kind of where they're going to go after you once you get in an accident?
So it's based more on their claims reserves, whether they were having reserves for claims.
Okay.
So let's say we have 2 years ago, we had a big storm in Texas.
Right.
The
winter storm.
The winter storm.
Right.
Every house was damaged. A lot of houses were damaged.
Yeah.
So they weren't prepared to pay all those claims. So their bucket to pay our claims went pretty low.
The reserves were now low, right?
So now they had to get their reserves back up.
So it's not individual.
It's not individual.
So if they're what you're saying is if they're flush with cash, then you're good. But if you got a major catastrophic event, then what you're saying is that get ready. We're all paying for it.
We're all paying for it.
Even if you didn't have a claim.
Correct.
We're all in this together.
Yes.
Socialism in a capitalistic industry.
Right.
Fantastic. There you go. Make sure you include that in there. Fantastic.
I love it. This is perfect. This
Vanguard
is such a
Agency.
The Vanguard Agency. Yes. Follow them. Give them your phone number one more time.
281-453-8770.
You have social media, any Instagram, websites?
Yeah, I have social, Instagram.
What's the website?
What's your Instagram?
The website is Vanguard Agency LLC.
Vanguard Agency,
and
okay.
the Instagram is Vanguard Agency. You can find that on.
Yeah. And not only that, but I'm going to be putting all of their information and all of the descriptions in the podcast episode coming up soon.
Right.
Thank you so much. It was
thank you.
really,
Thank you,
really
Roberto.
amazing conversation to have today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.